everybody, welcome back to the Friday edition of Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host and Disembodied Hands, Quindy. Yeah, right, I'm not awake. Disembodied Fear John. And everybody else, I guess. Everybody else, Rain in the Dark, who did not know that, Reaper Live's only every other week. It used to be every week, but maybe they ran out of stuff to say. Right, Papa? Right, yeah, Kiki is lurking. She wants to be barky today because there's people next door doing work. It's a lot of caffeine. That would wreck me. Alrighty. Boop. Alrighty, ready. Okay, we got a Halfling. And I lost Halfling's little name tag. I don't know where it went. I'll probably find it buried. I probably need to go through my shelf and just clean it up, and I'll find it then. But for now, we have temporarily misplaced his name tag. Luckily, Quindy has the information, and so yeah. But since I don't have that, I think we're using a mix of blue and brown liner, as I recall, with white. My creatine has totally taken over my caffeine addiction. I don't need it anymore. Which is good, since I react to it. But yeah. My brain is like totally kind of sluggish this morning, so apologies if I'm not as babbly as I usually am. Oh, did it? Oh, that's good, Quindy. Yeah. Well, hopefully Twisted Oma will be on. Since she usually gets on a little bit later. I'm going to do 3 drops of blue liner, 2 drops of brown. And mix that up and kind of transfer some of it over, put some white in it and see if it matches my color here. I don't want to do straight blue liner because that would be very, very, very blue. Although this is pretty blue. Were there, I didn't see the news, were there tornadoes with it, with the storm, or was it just high wind, hail and stuff, Quindy? Just mixing up my paint. Tornadoes. Oof. So I'm mixing up my mix, and to test it, I'm going to put some of it into this well here, and then add some white and see how close it is to my main color there. That'll tell me if I have my mix correct. I don't need to go really close because this is underpainting, so it doesn't need to be perfect. But looking at it, I think I don't have enough blue is what I'm thinking. I mixed a pretty good black there, but I don't know that it's blue enough. Nope, not blue enough. All right. Yeah, I don't miss that. That's one part of being in the DFW area in Texas in general that I don't miss is the big storms. I like storms in general as long as they're like happy, manageable storms, but we had some scary ones for sure. That's more bluer. Still not as blue though. Did I honestly just use blue liner for this? Now I'm wondering. I didn't think I did, but maybe I'm wrong. Also, I need to order more blue liner. Okay, it's on my list. Yes, good. Yeah, yikes. Whereas I've yet to feel an earthquake out here. I know we've had them. So we're going to mix this up. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to transfer just the blue liner over. But I keep thinking, oh, you know what? You know what we did? I think we used Death Knight Black. I'm like, wait, this isn't quite what I was going to use. But I think we may have used, yeah, we used DK. Oh no, Anne says, having used up 3 wells. Well, that's alright, since we're only doing like 2 colors. I told you I wasn't awake this morning. So yeah, let's go to Death Knight Black, and we're probably going to get a lot closer. I think I was just looking to switch it up. If you don't have Death Knight Black, you could use Black Indigo, although I think Black Indigo is a little bit more indigo. Yeah, I bet this is what, because I had trouble taking my darks really dark. And Death Knight is pretty weak, so. Boop. So I'm going to mix a halfway tone this time between the Death Knight and the white. Yeah, this is the color. It's much more like it. Yep, that's it. Yep. I should have known when I saw that Death Knight was still out on my table that I was using it for something. But like I said, kind of sleepy this morning. Definitely did not want to wake up this morning. You guys know those kind of days. I will be streaming tomorrow, I believe. We're going to make a push on this Crystal Dragon, I think. I can feel it. It's so close. And I may change my mind by tomorrow and decide to finish up the Barbarian instead, but we're very close on 2 different models, so. I still have to decide what the underside of the Crystal Dragon is going to look like. It's definitely sculpted as if it's normal dragon and not crystals, so. I have to figure out if I'm going to use my usual tan a la Larry Elmore, or if I'm going to change it up a bit. And I've got some white, and then we've got all of our colors, and we can have at. Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, Quindy. Fingers crossed you will not get hit quite as bad tonight as you did last night. I'm going to keep my white pretty strong this time. I'm just going to do a 4-to-1. Technically, I probably shouldn't stream. I have an awful lot to do this weekend to get done, but I'm going to try anyway. And it's all like tedious little things that are gonna like chasing down the last places I need to change my name, and like putting in my passport renewal and crap like that. Tedious little things to do that need to get done that easily fall out of your head when you're not thinking about them because they're not a day-to-day concern. Yeah, Pendrake, likely chat going blank is on your end, Quindy said, but she said it in the chat, so I wasn't sure if you saw it. All right, here, we got light coming in. There's going to be a lot of light on this side. Remember we did that white dry brush to kind of show us, so we're going to be working with that. We're starting to get some shadows here. Alrighty. I might be able to still use this black I mixed because the decay is so very translucent. So if I need a harder occlusion shadow, which I certainly do in some places here, I can reach for that. So we won't entirely waste the colors that we mixed up earlier. But the nice thing about the Death Knight is it is a little weaker, so I'm able to kind of build it up. I've been living vicariously through my family, my brother and his family being in Italy this week. Lots of pictures. I don't remember where they're going from here. I know they're maybe Germany. Maybe they're doing Italy and Germany. It's their last big family vacation hurrah before, like, Lauren is pretty much stuck away at school with her own life, and my nephew will also be, you know, he's got one more year of school, of high school, and then he's gone. Yeah, it sounds like a partial loading problem or something, Pendrake. Who knows? Now, I stopped painting here, and now I'm going over it with my new... Oh, and I'm totally blurry. Now I'm going over this line, but the thing here is, usually, right, I'm always trying to paint on a wet edge. But the thing here is that this is an angle that is never going to be a viewing angle, right? So if you have to do this, if you have to stop, and you notice I did that all around the figure. Like I stopped all of my brush strokes over here. So even if I do leave a brush stroke or a mark where the two sides are meeting, it's not going to be a big deal because this is an angle you're just not going to look at the figure from, right? So if you have to stop, like if you have to do that, if you have to stop in the middle and you're worried about getting brush strokes and globs because you're overlapping, which is totally valid, then just remember, just end on like the side of the mini where there's nothing to see. And that way you're fine. Because people are going to look for this model this way. They're going to look at it this way because they want to see the shield, and they're going to probably glance at the back. But they're not going to look at it from this direction. There's nothing interesting to see. Especially because most of that will be in shadow. So end your paint efforts in that direction. We need to make this rounded, this particular highlight / shadow. I need to figure out the NMM. The other thing you can do is kind of like stipple as you get close to where you're ending, and that way you can just stipple over that and match brush strokes. That way you don't have to look for evenness. Pattern strokes can save you an awful lot of worry in that you don't have to match evenness or smoothness. So using a textured stroke even when you're underpainting can help you with that. So I'm pretty much using just 3 steps here. The really dark, the mid, and the light to figure this out. Yeah, twitch app, totally twitchy. I think Twitch must be full of people who are not like who are not best seeking. Like I've been in meetings where like, you know, in my past like life where it's like discussion about improving something and then somebody says, "Well, they've dealt with it this long and we don't hear any complaints." And so they all assume that because they haven't, you know, because people aren't actively complaining about it, they can just leave the bad thing in place and it's not important to fix it. And I sometimes feel like maybe Twitch people, like Twitch's upper people, that's what they're like. Where they're like, well, sure, this sucks, but you know what? Everybody's used to it, so we don't have to spend resources there if we don't want to. Right? Sometimes I feel like that. Sorry, Twitch. Sorry, Twitch execs, if you're looking at me. I'm looking at you. But it's that kind of mentality where they'd much rather try to get a new thing online that makes them money and not spend resources fixing an old thing that only happens every once in a while and that people are so used to that they're resigned to it. And creators really have no way to like really push for change on it either. In fact, they're probably even more vulnerable to it because they depend on they depend on it for their side gig or their livelihood. So sadly, the Twitch app is probably not going to improve. Yeah. Yeah, we definitely, I prefer the browser version. Uh-oh, the Kiki fur got into my white paint. I have to get it out of there so I don't accidentally pick it up on my brush. It's sitting there, lurking, staring at me. At least it's like not a stealth hair. Like at least it's a dark hair, so it showed up on the white paint. There. Let's get that out of there. We're gonna give her a bath this weekend, I think, which will hopefully minimize the aggressive shedding that is now happening. Yeah, I far prefer the companies that actually work on things until they're ready and like make an effort to fix bugs and make quality of life improvements even after something is launched, just because they understand that their user base will, you know, become more loyal if they do so. Like old Blizzard. And the company that was doing that impressed me the other day was I forget the name, but it's the company that does the Hades game, because they did the whole, hey, Hades 2 is here and you can play it before it's out, and you know it's still a work in progress, but they've made it really easy and effortless to report bugs, so they obviously care like about about catching those things and making sure that the game actually is full released with a minimum of them. Like, it was so seamless that David was impressed. And when a programmer is impressed, you know it's actually something. Hey, Thormel. I think I need to thin this stuff just a little bit more. My mid color is just a little bit too thick. Oh, I have to share with you guys a book that I read this week that I was trying to read more romantasy. Although this one I don't know if it counted as a romantasy. I guess I kind of do. It's less romancy than I thought it would be, though. It's more an adventure fantasy with a strong romance like subplot, but it is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. It is very good. I'm gonna like I almost binged it. It was so good. When I started reading it last night, I couldn't stop reading it. It's essentially set in a Victorian world where fairies are like a known quantity, like, and have been. Although the attitude of like culture, of humans toward fairies has changed over time and evolved. So now they're actively studying fairies. But it's got the whole dangerous fae going on thing, which is very true to traditional tales, and it's chock full of like traditional like tales and like descriptions. It's really good. It's really cool period piece. The fairies are cool too. Oh yeah. Thanks, seriously. Yeah, he was talking about gouache, and in the process of talking about gouache, he pointed out something that I thought was interesting, which is that you will never get the same vibrancy of color from an opaque color as you will from a transparent, which is yet another like argument for keeping transparent colors in hobby paint lines. Because when you want that depth of color, you are more likely to achieve it through glazing with a transparent or putting a transparent over a white underpaint than you are, you aren't going to be able to get that even in the brightest of opaque colors. It just won't be the same. And this is why the alizarin crimson in oil is so much better than the one, it's part of why, than the one like that Chimera put out, which is not as much of a transparent. I think it's a different pigment too, but so remember that, like, when you're trying to like put down a really, really intense color, maybe for some OSL. This is why I use the clears for OSL, guys. If you ever wondered, like, but James Gurney just put it into words for me. Because he's the one that physically, he's like, you won't get this. You cannot get the same intensity of color from an opaque paint as you can from a transparent. So that's why when I want a really vibrant, like, purple color, I'll glaze with Monarch. And why the clears are useful that way, especially when you're doing OSL, because you usually need a certain purity of color to mimic that light, a certain intensity, and you won't get it from an opaque paint. So, like, when you've got an opaque cadmium orange, it's still, when you put it down, is still not going to be as intense as pulling like a more transparent orange over white. Now, most of us don't paint with super intense colors all anyway, because it limits your color choices for the rest of the composition. But in the case of like lighting effects, it is actually important. Especially if you ever are painting something like more sci-fi or modern, and you're trying to do like a neon type, glow effect where it's colored. It's important to know you're never going to get the intensity you want. Or it's going to be very difficult to get the intensity you want when you are using an opaque paint. So high coverage, not always the answer, as I always say, but this is yet another instance of why. James Gurney is really good at taking stuff like that I know and saying, why? And it's just the way that light filters through the pigment. It's going to allow for more vibrancy. Whereas when you've got an opaque paint, that shuts down. Like, the textured surface doesn't allow light to filter through the substrate. So you lose that luminosity. No, not at all. More pigment does not equal coverage. Seriously. I actually did. There's a series. I should look these up and make sure that I put them in my color theory collection on my Patreon. But there's Paint Mythbusters. I did a Paint Mythbusters soon after I started the Patreon. I think it's in that first 2019 year. And that's the most common misconception out there, and paint companies perpetuate it, but it's absolutely not correct. The amount of pigment does not affect the coverage unless the pigment itself is a high coverage pigment. You can take the most transparent pigment and you can load more pigment in the paint than the paint can actually hold, and you will still not get coverage. So it's entirely because a matte surface has like a micro texture to it. That's why it's matte. It has to interrupt the light, right? Because if the light is coming through, like the light has to be scattered over the surface for a matte surface. So you need a lot of little tiny micro texture. And so a matte agent, that's what it's doing, is it's essentially when the paint dries, it leaves a slight texture, and that's why you get the matte. But what that also does is it disrupts how light interacts with the color. So if you put a gloss, it's the same reason that if you then put a gloss over something, the color deepens. Like the color appears to suddenly have more depth. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in there that... Because the problem is that that companies who put out miniatures paints that are their model companies, they're just going to essentially repeat what their paint company has told them. And often the paint company has just tried to simplify things, or it's... because it's like, well, when there's a decent, coverage in the pigment, then it covers better if you add more to the paint, but, it's simplifying that. So you have a lot of people, parroting what they've been told without understanding it. Like when Privateer Press first came out with their paint line, they were like, and it's got liquid pigments. And I kind of went, because every paint line has liquid pigments. But I'm sure that their paint company was like, oh, and mentioned that they used liquid pigments, and it became a selling point. And then, Privateer Press was like, oh, this is special, when actually it wasn't special. It was, in fact, something that every, industrial paint line had moved toward long ago. And for that matter, all miniatures paint lines, because nobody uses ground pigments anymore. Like in the old style grind, they all are ground to below a micron, and then they're put into a liquid substrate to carry them. So essentially, the more white, and there's a top out too. Every paint has a certain amount of pigment load that it will tolerate. Every base. So you're also limited by the base you use as far as how much you can add to it and still maintain a paint that will set, right? If you add too much pigment to a paint, you actually get watercolor. The pigment will come up and it won't set. If you re-wet it, it will reactivate. So there is a definite, plus you also interfere with your adhesion. So there's a definite limit on some of this stuff, on how much pigment you can actually add. You can't just keep adding pigment. Every base has its own limit. Depending on the chemistry of it. So we're bringing out some details here. And I'm trying to keep shadows in mind. There's a lot of shadow all on the backside. There's no white dry brush at all on this side of the model. So I'm going to grab my DK and I'm just going to put it all over. My DK needs a little bit more, I think. A little bit more goop. It should all be accurate, the Mythbusters stuff I did. Still accurate. I mean, the stuff changes in the industry. But yeah, so and I can usually tell by talking to somebody, I forget when it was, when Creature Caster's line came out, I was kind of standing watching their staff painter do stuff at the booth, and they were spouting off factoids about the paint, but some of it was just the same old myths, and I was just like, oh, they don't really know why or what. There is no proper place. It's choice, Rain. I've always considered going to Warhammer to do it, but I always when I look at Warhammer, usually the people streaming there are people that actually paint a lot of Games Workshop. So I don't paint a lot of Games Workshop. So what I've considered is when I'm working on my Games Workshop like Golden Demon project, I have considered trying to stream over in Warhammer. Warhammer has more viewers for miniature painting, one could say. But like I said, a lot of them are going to expect Games Workshop. They may or may not be interested in anything else. Now, people like Luca, who spend a lot of time in Warhammer, probably working on commissions, no problem, because like they're just used to Luca. At this point, Luca is a destination. It's kind of like being a destination store. People like Luca, and so they show up for his stream. And he gets so many viewers that other people will stop by because they're curious about why he has so many viewers, and then they'll get to like him. Because even though Luca likes to say how unlikable he is, he's actually very likable, as we all know. So there is no proper. There's never one answer to these sorts of things. You could try, even not painting Warhammer, you could try to stream in the Warhammer channel, and who knows if you'd have any success or not. For me, I feel like I don't want to go over there unless I am actually working on GW. But that's just me. He's pretty awful. Yes, but people love to watch him be awful. They all wish they could be as awful as Luca. But he appeals to that culture, I'm sure. And that's the other reason I kind of stay away from the Warhammer channel, is that I'm not sure of the culture there. I mean, I used to hang out with GW guys, and things could get pretty toxic. So I'm not sure I really want to go there. But maybe it's different. I don't know. One day I will go over and try it and see. Oh, Luca? Yeah. He's also good for really intense colors. A lot of times he's working on bigger models too. Unless he's doing his Reaper stream. He's working on big stuff. And that helps with the blending when you've got more room. If you have your blending aptitude down, if you've practiced as he has anyway. Obviously, if you're only just starting blending, then you might struggle. I need a back reflection or a back lighting here, reflected light. But yeah, if you're just starting out blending, then starting with something bigger might be easier for you, or it might be harder. It just depends. Ah, the Chimera Kickstarter, yeah. Yeah, Twitch probably feels like there's no reason. Because the thing is that if you add a miniatures category that's non-GW, you pull all the miniature painters out of the art channel, and that makes your art channel essentially, like, it kind of hobbles it a bit, because a lot of the people, I think, in art channel are miniature painters. So essentially you pull a lot of the content away from your art channel. So I can see why, like, they might consider it, like, not a great idea, or maybe they just don't wanna. I mean, it's Twitch, right? No idea what their motives are. Now, I don't like to generalize like that, Shadow Raven. Even though I may mention it, but I mention that not because I am, like, actively saying that people over there are, but because I am afraid that they are, right? And this could be my misconception, right? So let's not generalize, because there are a lot of good GW guys out there. I'll just clarify that that was my fear more than anything, because I know there are a lot of trolls on this platform, and I know the art channel. I'm familiar with it, and I like the vibe here. So I'm just cautious about channels that might attract more gamer than artist, just because I know how salty people can get. Yes, correct. That's why whenever I meet somebody when I'm at an art show and they like mention miniatures, I always stop and clarify whether they mean the miniature canvas or actual figures. Yeah, but that's not just them alone. You know, there's also people like that in the War Machine. Any miniatures game, there's people like that in Infinity. There's people like that were in Rackham and Confrontation. You know, every community has toxic people in it. Even Reaper. We just don't see them very often. We're so darn positive and like happy sunshine people that it kind of like drives them away. But we do get some trolls. We do get some trolls. We just don't generally engage with them, so they aren't fed here. We do not feed the trolls here. That's why when everyone comes into chat, I'm just like, just ignore them. All they want is attention. Don't even comment. Because that's how you starve the trolls, and then they leave. But yeah, mostly it's that I'm comfortable in the art community. I like it here. I like streaming in this community. I think we get some cool people in the chat. Oh, I don't. I figure, you know what? They're going to just take one look at the screenshot that they give you, and they're going to realize it's not Canvas. So I don't even bother to change my hashtag or add a hashtag there. I figure that they can see it. Because, I mean, when I go to Twitch, I'm glancing right down at the kind of the viewer, you know, this is what I don't even have to look at their tag to see what they're playing. Right? If I'm looking for Overwatch, I'm going to see that it's Overwatch or it's not. But you're right, that is a very considerate thing to do, Laura. So alright, so let's darken in the back of this leg here. Yeah, exactly. Literally every community ever. Yep. It's true. What Quindy says. Yeah, it's just that I know this community. Like, I used to be in the GW community, but I really haven't been for a long time. Not once I stopped. Once I wasn't working for them anymore, and once I stopped going to Golden Demon, like, I fell out of that community. So I'm not as up on them anymore. So, like, the viewership attracts me, but the unknown doesn't. The sense of the unknown doesn't. If I do go in, I'm gonna have to go in with armor on and just know, well, there's a whole different group of people, and they might not be receptive to, like, me painting here, right? But that said, once I start painting Critter, I will likely go over and try it. Because, you know, maybe it'll be fun. I definitely am somebody who, if I don't watch myself, I'll get in my comfort zone and I just won't move. I think a lot of people are like that because we like what we know. But I also like to, knowing that I'm like that, I like to push it every once in a while and see. Because sometimes if I give something a chance, I end up liking it. Oh yeah, far more for. I think it's very much more for Insta. I agree. But I don't do Insta. Like, I put up something on Insta every once in a blue moon. Because social media is a time sucker for me. Like, it will distract me and I will not get anything done. My brain is too susceptible to shinies. Trying to get this tendon here, but I just overdid it. So I'm going to shade again. Yeah, that's better. And I know the whole mini painting community is on Insta, but it's just like, eh. David spends enough time on Insta for both of us. If I was still building my reputation, maybe I would be more on Insta. But I don't know. Social media is really just not my jam. I would much rather be like here or YouTubing it. Like on YouTube, I seem to find so many people who resonate with my teaching style. These days, I'm getting quite a few new patrons from YouTube. So I think it's just like finding the community that you resonate with as far as if you're going to do social media. And it's also, of course, it's your reasons for doing it. But I did do a test where I asked my patrons where they found me. And Instagram was one of the choices. And I told them they could put like extra, things in the comments. But not a single person mentioned Instagram. And that was after I had been doing Instagram for I made a concerted effort to do it for 6 months solid, posting every week and watching my hashtags and painting a whole bunch of different stuff. But I think it's just maybe not my thing. And I didn't enjoy it. That was the big thing that pushed me back from it, is that I really did not enjoy having to go and post there. It was definitely a task for me. It was not a joy. Yeah, sure, Quindy. And I do believe, writer people say this, because a lot of new writers are encouraged to, promote themselves on social media. But I belong to the school that says if you do not enjoy a social media platform, you should not do it. Don't make yourself do it. It's not going to be the authentic you if you don't enjoy it, and so it's going to not be, something that's really going to work for you. Just don't. So these days I only do the social media that I like. Well, and even then, that's not, not everybody can do that, not everybody enjoys it, right? Because even then, it might not really do a lot for you, it just depends. I question sometimes, I found, I should look this up, but I bet the conversion rate for Insta isn't very high for things like Patreon. I'll have to double check, but it's not something I would do even if because I know I don't enjoy it. But you can double check that stuff. If you are trying to promote yourself, usually there's some metrics out there. If you're trying to build a Patreon like I am, there's some metrics out there as far as which platforms convert better to Patreon. That people are going on there to look for stuff like that. Couple times a day. Yeah, way too much for me too. Because if I'm posting it, if I'm trying to prep a model and post it a couple times a day, I'm not doing all the other things I need to be doing. Like, I guess I just always did kind of a cost benefit analysis for me. I know it works for some of the really big names have a lot of success with Instagram promotion. I think it works pretty well for like Sergio and Ben Comets and them in Miniature Monthly. I'm curious as to how well it works for smaller names. That would be my question mark. So we're pretty much looking at the light here, and we're asking ourselves, okay, I need to lighten this little area here, because if the light's coming from up here, I can move my shield, and I can see this little bit of bag, right? So that means I need to lighten that up a little bit. Yeah, right. But it's like book talk, right? Like, especially if I do write a couple of like romantasy books, like that's huge on book talk. But will I do book talk? Probably not, because it's not my thing. I don't think I would enjoy it, and in order to do it, it's a time investment. I've taken seminars about using book talk, and it is like Instagram. You have to post several times a day, because the feed is just so, it's flying by for people, especially in a popular category like that. And I would have to do like separate videos to promote my books, and it's like I have enough on my plate doing videos to like for Patreon. Right, says they have more ads than actual posts. Exactly. And that's always like it's like at that point I would rather put my video time into YouTube, which actually is demonstrated to convert for me, and into doing my little Twitch stream because I enjoy that, and into like for my books, it's all Amazon ads because it's the easiest thing. I don't have to spend time making ads. My book's cover is my ad. So yeah, honestly, a lot of my promotion stuff these days. Yeah, I need a little bit more light there. A lot of my promotion stuff these days is like how much bang can I get for a minimal buck because I've got so much on my plate. Like I do have to get some Amazon ads in. Okay, so we look at this. Yeah, okay, good. Yep, I think we're about right there. Maybe a little bit more shadow. Which is interesting, Laura, because for me, they convert better than anything. I find it very interesting sometimes. For authors, I know YouTube is mentioned in the social media thing. They don't usually mention Twitch because, Twitch is not really author. How are you going to promote your book? You probably would have to get on and like just talk about stuff. And I think most authors, though, they're using YouTube Live for that, right? They're using the YouTube streaming platform like Brandon Sanderson. They're not using Twitch. But yeah, I find it interesting that for miniature painters or whatever, that YouTube is not mentioned like it's its own beast, but it's like if you're teaching, YouTube is a natural like social media platform to. I disagree. I mean, I think they are social media platforms. They're structured differently, but I do disagree, Laura. And the reason I disagree is that you can build a community on YouTube, especially with the live streaming. And with Twitch, you definitely build a community. And that to me says social media, right? Because that's what it's about. That's what all social media is about, is building communities that you communicate with, right? How you communicate. In the case of writers, they put it how you communicate with fans, right? But writers definitely count YouTube in as a social media platform. It's also an educational platform. It does a lot of different things, right? But I think you can use it as a social media platform. I'm interested in people who won't class it that way. It sounds to me more like if they're trying to like really fine tune like what they mean by social media, which is cool. But with the streaming capacity of YouTube, like... Yeah. Right. I am disagreeing with that. Yeah. Well, you're presenting it, so I didn't know if it was your opinion or not. When people like put a statement in there, I didn't know if that was you or if it was researchers. I disagree with those researchers. Absolutely do, because that's... I think that it probably varies depending on who you talk to. But I think the streaming capability makes it a different bear. I'm going to just emphasize some of the details here with my liner. All right, so now I'm testing. This is pretty much where my light goes. I don't think anything else on the other side. And I'm going to keep this shadow in here because I think it looks right from this. So that means everything on this side is dark, which we've mostly done. But now we need to bring up some highlight. So we're going to use our mid color to do that. I am, however, going to do the NMM on the sword real quick. Because the light is actually falling on this face where I've lightened it up, so I want to do this. Maybe, Laura. I don't know. I guess I would need to look up the actual definition of social media. What does Webster's say? Putting in some shadows. No, this is underpainting War Shadow. We're going to paint over the top. Just like we're doing with this guy. He had blue and yellow underpainting. But now, as we start to glaze colors over it, it will start to change. So this is using techniques that are common in the 2D art world, but using them on miniatures. So for here, I want to do a very strong lighting effect hitting the shield, like there was a spell coming up or some sort of like power that was hitting the shield. So I wanted to make sure I got my hard shadow in here, and I'm just using this to kind of figure out where the light is falling. That way, when I go to do my colors, I understand better where the true color is going to come up and where it's not. Yeah, like that, like Dragon Flame, something like that. Some sort of energy spell that's being, cast or hurled in the halfling's direction. No barks, Keeks. No, it's just the people next door. It's just the people next door. Yeah, it's nobody. It's nobody. They're not here. They're not here. Yeah, you're fine, little beast. Hi, little beast. Yeah, there you go, Bubba. Good girl. Yes, I did just use my finger in there to come out and smudge that color because it was not going down in as thin a line as I wanted it to. Finger painting on minis. Yes, exactly. Why we live next door to axe murderers. I laugh at that because it's the neighbor we don't like as well. She usually doesn't bark at the neighbors that we do like, but they're very quiet also. I'm happy it's the weekend, guys. Even if I have a lot of annoying little things to do, I'm going to do some reflection here. Maybe I'll ask David to save me from cooking, and we can go out this weekend. I've been so good on my diet this week, I feel like I deserve a treat. Yeah. Yeah, they are different, you're right. Yeah, that makes sense. It's good that you're looking into data, though, because I know a lot of people throw themselves into platforms and without a lot of, like, looking at if those platforms actually convert or if their audience is there, right? That's the other thing to look at. Obviously, with miniature painting, your audience is definitely on Instagram. There's no question there. Also on Facebook. The Book of Faces. But Instagram is big. But yeah, I'd be interested about conversion. Conversion is always the big question. Everybody's chasing conversion. Highlights on a purple red on a fig with a purplish and bluish green color scheme. I mean, what's your light color? That's my first question, Shadow Raven. What color is the light? Is it just white? Is it natural light, in which case it has a little yellow in it? That's the first question to use to expand your understanding of highlighting, by the way. Because when you have purple red, you can bring that up by warming it up a little bit. You can bring it up toward red, magenta, and then use even a little bit of yellow in it at the end. But it also depends on your saturation. Like, what's your saturation level? Like, these are questions to ask yourself, right? Because all the answers to the question that you have asked, if you go beyond just a standard gaming figure. So actually the first question is this a standard gaming figure, or are you trying to make it, trying to push yourself? Yeah. Okay, Twistoma, we wondered if you were okay after the storms. Good to see you. So, the short answer is you should probably use reddish color, more, like continue adding more red or magenta. Because red and teal works really well together. It's almost a complementary Shadow Raven. But as you progress, should you try to start thinking about your light color, which is going to influence things, as you will see on this model. But those questions I asked you are just like, nothing is in a vacuum, right? The answer in mini painting is always it depends. If it were me, I would be thinking about warmer versus cooler, and the fact that my primary light source in a natural environment is warmer and my shadows are cooler. So I would be looking to move a red up toward kind of a peachy color for the top highlight. Well, I mean, okay. If you have a purple red, it's going to shift along the line of that purple red, right? It's going to warm up a purple red. If you have a purple red, like Runic Purple, you can add yellow to it, and it will go warmer and even orangier and peachier. Like, it will actually go toward that. So It won't go red, it'll go orange. A lighter orange. That's a really hard... Okay, so that is a problem. Because Gothic Crimson is a transparent, so when you add anything with white to it, it's going to immediately go ugly. It's going to go ugly big time. I would use violet red, and then I would cover, yeah, I don't know. I probably would have started with something like violet red and then put Gothic Crimson on it to bring it down, because it's such a transparent color. The big thing with transparents is you will always benefit by adding a tiny bit of white to them before you put them down. Otherwise, highlighting them it's really hard, because they'll wash out immediately. They'll go way too light with the minimum of white. They're very hard to work with. Enough. Kiki! Hey! Enough. Shut up, or you go into your crate. Settle down. Settle down. Thank you. Thank you. Settle down. Yeah. I would honestly... It depends if you want it to stay purple. If you want it to stay purple, then bring up the Gothic Crimson. Try bringing it up with Runic Purple, but that's not going to be red enough, probably. Gothic Crimson is far more red. It's a purple red instead of a red purple. So you're probably going to go toward like pink and peach. Yeah, I mean, orange is what's going to happen when you mix a bit of yellow and white in. I mean, bottom line, Shadow Raven, try to mix. Like, take your Gothic Crimson, maybe put some, like some lemon yellow or some candlelight and some white into another well, and just pick up a tiny bit of the candlelight and white and put it in the Gothic Crimson and see what color it makes. And that's where you start. And then as you go up further, start dropping the yellow out and just adding white. But without seeing it, like, Gothic Crimson is just so dark. Yes, definite woofs. Alright, so I'm going to mix my medium blue-gray, and I'm going to start putting in little highlights back here in the darks. Because there is light in the dark. If there's this harsh of a light up front, there's going to be bounce light for sure. So what we do then is we highlight, but we only highlight with our midtone, with our 50-50. We never go up to white back here. We just put a little bit of light in. Enough! Hey! Ready? Bye. Exiled. No more barks. Had to exile the dog. Because sometimes she's just doing it because she's like bored and I'm here and she's trying to get attention. So, yep, Kiki has been exiled. So anyway, just like we showed with the other model when I was looking at James Gurney's work, remember he keeps some of that lighter blue-gray to outline his shadows so that you can still see the details. So we're going to use this mid half and half white and Death Knight black, and we're going to do a highlight on all the stuff that is in shadow, just like we did up here on the hand and arm. Yeah, now she's sad. She's just going to plop down in front of the door, the gate. I have a limited tolerance level. It's like, you can bark once or twice and that's fine. But if you don't settle down then, you're done. Because she does have that manipulative thing. She absolutely is trying to manipulate the human to getting what she wants, which is more attention, right? She wants to pull me away from the stream and get attention because she's bored. Now the one place that we might throw an actual white highlight is onto metal. We're going to be close anyway. We'll probably mix the white with a little bit of the blue-gray. Because whatever light there is, this metal is going to catch it. And if I feel like it's too strong, I can put a little bit of the blue-gray over the top to mute it down a little. Hey, raiders! Thanks, Playing the Mud, for the raid. We're doing some cool stuff today. So this is underpainting. We're going to be doing a lighting effect. So I want a bright light like a spell or dragon breath or whatever. That's going to be hitting the shield here in front of the halfling. I originally envisioned a spell effect. So he's raising his shield to try to block the spell from hitting him, or the light, or the energy, whatever is attacking him. I wanted a shadow. I wanted to very much be like light and shadow on this figure. So I'm doing underpainting with a liner color and white. And the liner in this case is Death Knight Black, which is kind of a black indigo. And then when we've got this mapped in, it's going to tell us where our warm light, which is the white, and our cool, which is the more the blue-gray, it's going to tell us where those are. And then when we lay down our colors, this is going to, in our map here of the lighting, is going to enforce like where the colors are in shadow, and thus they have to be muted out, or where they're in the light, and we can show a more intense color. And for some reason, everybody wanted me to paint this guy green, so we're going to be doing some green. But not quite yet. I'm almost there, though. I'm almost there. Might be able to start today, if I can get the rest of this kind of figured out. So I'm just taking a blue-gray, which is halfway between my white, light and dark, and I'm bringing out details in the shadow areas. And here on the little sword, the scabbard, there's some metal, so... But yeah, I'm Anne. I work for Reaper Miniatures. Just part-time now, though I used to be full-time. I used to be a Reaper owner. I made the Reaper paint line, Master Series paints. But nowadays, I just do the stream, because I moved. And we stream every weekday, unless something weird happens. Naga green was the exact color that people suggested. Yeah, I don't think we've got any... We've got some green on the Sophie, which will be Monday's model. Monday we will be back to giant Sophie Druid. We can make him green, it's fine. It's a fine color for a halfling. Alright, I'm just looking to see if there's anything else I think I want to bring up a little highlight on the back of this blade here. A lot of the colors just aren't going to show, or they're going to be very muted. Just like with Mouseling. The first time I did this was with Mouse, remember? He also is green, by the way, so it's funny that you guys keep picking green for OSL. Though he was leaf bud green. So this is an example of one I did before. And likewise, when you move to the cool side, the colors are there, but they get very muted. And so here on the halfling, same thing's going to happen. Although Mouse has a lot more metal on him back here. And his light is also more orange. And this light is going to be more of a yellow-white. No, I did it. I didn't, actually. Not like this. I mostly just kept my light color in mind and just painted the mouse. And then I used glazing to shade down the back, as I recall. It's here on the, I mean, it's on our YouTube, so if you want to watch how I did that mouseling, you can. I usually don't do a full underpaint like this. I've just started to do it because I wanted to show you guys more like 2D stuff, like how you might set it up like a 2D artist would. The reason I went with this way is that in 2 streams we've managed to complete the underpainting, and that's going to essentially make things a little bit easier for us. Like, it's been very fast, relatively speaking. We've got all this underpainting done in 3 hours, and a lot of what we have to do remaining is glazing. Like, this should be a fast paint. Much as you'd think it wouldn't be because you're spending all this time underpainting, but just putting in the shadow there, making sure my highlight and shadow are about right. But yeah, so you could go and watch the mouseling one. There's lots of, my point in doing this is just to show there's lots of different ways to tackle this sort of thing. This is a less common, like most miniature painters don't do it this way. But I really like underpainting and the effects that you can get. There we go. I want this rounded, and I wanted this more crescent shaped because of the roundness of the helmet. Yeah, it all depends on how much underpainting. I'm not expecting to leave a whole lot. I'm expecting to glaze over a lot of it. Need to get my white in this. All the blade is going to have white edge around it. But yeah, I expect these models to like be very similar in the end, except for the color of the light being different. And going with more of the indigo shade here instead of the blue-gray that I used on the mouseling. I want all the metal to have a little bit of light on it. Alright. There we go. Now the underside of this arm I do want some reflected light on, so I'm going to add some of the blue-gray there. There we go. So we got that arm. It's got that heavy shadow. Alright, we're good. Oh, the base. Though I could probably leave the base just because it's like... we're probably going to have to sculpt more of it to put him on a bigger base anyway. I mean, this is how you would paint, like, if you ever want to know how to paint like a noir model or a sepia figure, this is how to paint it. Like, this is exactly what you would do if you were painting like a Western mini to look like it was in sepia tones, or painting a detective mini to be more a noir, black and white, with just maybe a touch of red. Like, this is exactly what you would do. You'd just be using black and white, or you'd be using sepia and white. So you would just stop here. You wouldn't add color if you were doing that. Right. And it's a little bit. So if you, that's the nice thing about learning this technique, is that it sets you up to do those other things too, because you're just doing that with different colors then. Or in the case of noir, a lack of color. Black and white. Bye, Crowley. Yeah, have a great weekend. It's not, it's pretty easy to, if you mess it up, to just correct it, because you're only working with, like, the dark, the light, and the mid. So, like, when you paint something wrong, you can always adjust it with a minimum of effort, because it's just those three colors, right? And some blending if you want to. And you just keep, I mean, I've corrected stuff already that I did wrong the first time out. So, like, I mean, there's no question, even I, like, screwed up. But you just gotta, like, kind of keep figuring out what makes sense, right? And trying to apply it. I'm gonna do a little bit more of a shadow down here, just to show you that, yeah, I think I lightened this too much. So, I mean, go in understanding that you're going to probably mess it up and have to correct it. I mean, just go in expecting that, right? But be ready to correct it instead of getting discouraged. Like, I knew that I was going to mess this up as I did it for you guys. Like, I was going to have to correct things as I went. But that's just the way this is. Like, it's... All right, I think we're good. Okay. Nope, wrong color. Nope, wrong color. Nope, wrong color. Yes, right color. Now the question is what I want to make green. Because he's got a couple different parts. Except I think, I was thinking these sleeves were separate, but now I don't think so. So I think we almost have to, we've got two choices. We can do the cloth with the little thing around his neck, green, and then the pants green, or we can do the armor green. I think I'm going to make the armor green. Yeah, these are just like... just different ways to get to the same goal. Like, and all of these exercises, between the way I did the mouseling, which was just pretty much my whole look at what your torch covers, you know, to figure out where your light is, to this, where I also use that technique, but instead I'm doing an underpainting and then glazing style. Like, you're just gonna get their different routes, right? It's also the same goal. So I want to glaze. I want to see how glazing works on this. And then I'm going to see how much my underpainting was effective or not effective. So I'm going to thin down my Naga green. Let's see what a 1-to-1 gives me. Naga has some better coverage, so I might have to thin it a little bit more. I don't want to totally bury. The thing about underpainting, Kiki, enough. The thing about underpainting is that you've shut it. Is that if you put too much paint on, you're going to just wipe out what you did. So, one thing I think I do have to do at this point, actually before I even do that green, is I have to remember my light color. So what I'm going to do is get lemon yellow, and I'm going to touch that over what I've got here. Where is my lemon? Lemon. It's all, the underpainting's finished now, so, and the back is done. Because the thing is, if I just put my colors glazed over it as it is, I'm going to be using this kind of a blue-white, right? But I know my light is yellow. So I'm going to grab some lemon yellow, which is a pale yellow. And it's a green shade yellow, so the green will go well over it. And I'm going to thin that down a little bit. I'm going to paint it over the parts where my light is. Let's see if I can get the right consistency here. Now, green shade yellow is one of the most transparent pigments. It may be it in magenta. It's a tie with it in magenta for as far as what the most transparent pigment is, probably. The weakest pigment. Now we're going to start bringing in color. And the first color I want is the yellow. And it should gray out these shadows a little bit instead of keeping them blue or going green with them. And the reason is that the yellow, remember we've got violet in this because of Death Knight. So the purple and the yellow are going to cancel each other out and produce a gray effect. The blue is going to want to shift green. Yeah, I don't think we're going to get to the Naga. I should have thought of this first. I have to get the light shifted yellow so that when my glaze is... it's not really a glaze. It's like that. It's probably a layering consistency. It's thin enough that it's not going to totally obstruct the shadows, but it's a little thicker than a glaze. A glaze would have been way too weak with this color because the pigment is so transparent. I probably would have had to put on several layers. I still may need to paint a couple layers over the top, but I mostly just want to warm this up. Because I know lemon yellow is a pretty weak color, I knew I didn't have to thin it as much to get the effect I wanted. You know what? I just saw a mold line. Grrr! 1 second. Nothing worse. I'm just trying to scrape it off real quick with my knife. Right around the shield. There we go. Alright. That's better anyway. So yeah, the thing about it is that when you have a more transparent color, you can leave it thicker and still get a glazing effect because it's just not a very high coverage color. So it is going a little bit greenish. That's fine. So what I want really is to get this light a little bit golden to get that color of the light in. Right? Just like I asked Shadow Raven, what color is your light? This is what color our light is. Now, the color of the light in the shadows is going to be very cool opposite this. So I'm going to be cautious about where I put this yellow. Like none of this doesn't get there. This part does. Only the stuff that can see the light is going to get this yellow. Bye, Shadow Raven. There. So anything white, anything that's getting the full light. Metal, definitely. Metal is going to be the truest reflector of the light color. And this is far faster than trying to bring this yellow up by itself, guys. Because the yellow is so transparent, doing the white underpaint gives me what I want. Much faster than trying to layer up this yellow itself would. Because it would take a long time to layer this transparent of a color. Whereas when using white, it's super easy. So in a way now, we've shifted to doing almost colored undercoat, kind of like the other guy. But this has gone much faster than him. Because with him, we brought the yellow, we were just using the yellow and the blue, and then trying to bring in a black, and we're trying to do all that different stuff, right? It takes us more time. But this is faster. And we won't get quite the same impact because I'm making this very, because the light color here is very, very pale. It's not as vibrant as the yellow that I put on the other guy. I want a warm light. All right. So bringing up, see that warmth starting to spread across the figure. So yeah, this was much faster than trying to do this, bring this yellow up this way. There's a little bit on the leg there, and there's a bit on the blade. Just little bits of light. And I forgot this is metal, so I need to actually come in and hit this the breastplate a bit with white before we end today. Although we're going a bit late, but it's all right. And the light does touch this side of the sword. So I'm going to keep that there. And the other side. All right, and let's take our white and bring up the reflections a little bit on this breastplate. And that'll be pretty good. There we go. Just need to get those plates up a little bit more. And now, let's see, how thin is this? A little bit more. Let's just do a quick glaze over part of the tunic with our naga. I do want to make sure that I do a little bit of highlight in here. The danger is really losing a lot of this, but we'll see what we can do. All right. The nice thing about the saturated color is that it's pretty intense. You can see the green coming in both places here. Gotta pull off my excess 1 second. Don't want it to puddle. You can see the green. And the blue is taking the green. We're not losing our shadows or our highlight color. The blue is taking the green really muted out. And it's quite vibrant down here against that yellow. That's what we're doing. Like, that's what we are going to work on. So I may put one more layer on. I could also just choose to glaze not in the shadows, but just over more of the highlights up here to bring the green up a little bit, to make it a little more intense. But I don't want to, I want to keep that shadow color. That's our shadow color right there. And that's our highlight color right there. So we've essentially, it's so easy. It's just like and you can go in after you do all these glazes and put additional highlights and, you know, shadows and stuff on if you want. So this leg, because it's further away from the light, isn't as warm, see? Which, there is a little bit of light actually hitting this part of the hand. If I look at my spell effect, I can see it. So, but everything else is just a shadow highlight, which means we're using our mid, because there's going to be reflected light. With a light this intense in the room, there is going to be light reflecting onto this hand. Yeah, it's all reflected light. It's not necessarily a reflection off the armor, but a reflection off of everything. Like, the light is going to bounce. Like, if the light is coming from this area, that hand is actually a light reflection coming from the surrounding environment, not off the armor. Necessarily. I mean, you don't need to be real specific. If you're doing a bigger model, Roger, you could worry about the reflected light color. Like, if I made these stones reddish, then I'd have a reddish hue maybe up here. But on a small model, I don't find that carries as well and doesn't look as convincing as on a big model. So I don't tend to do it on little models. I don't tend to do reflected environment onto little models. I want a little more. There. So it glazes. You can always add on a little bit more. But you can see how, like, we've got a little bit of warmth here because I added a little bit. But in general, it's cooler than it is over here, right? But it's warmer than it is up there because this part up here is getting some light. So yeah, so that's how this technique works, and we're going to just keep working this way around the model, and then kind of see where we are, right, as far as our colors looking convincing and everything. But there, I wanted to at least get the first bit of color onto him. And then with the metal itself, we're going to have some more work to do. Most likely. So there you go, guys. There it is. It's starting. We finished all the... But if you think about it, this has been less than 3 hours. Less than 3 hours, and we're really making huge progress. We may get this mini done in less than 5 hours. So super fast. I don't think we're gonna, I think it'll probably actually be more like 6 hours. I think 6 hours. I'd say 4 streams, because once I get all the glazing in, I'm going to want to tune that. I'm going to want to make sure the NMM is correct. You know, and obviously we haven't based him. But just to give you guys an idea, right? And we'll have to do a lot more on the shield up here, a bit more to make it sharper. But you get the idea. So you wouldn't think this would be a speed painting technique, and yet. Okay, I'm going to remember that it was Death Knight next time, because I've now done it wrong and live to tell the tale. Thank you, everybody. I'm glad you're okay, Twisted Oma. And we, like I said, I'll be streaming tomorrow on my own channel, twitch.tv/paintingbig. We're either finishing, we're either doing finish work on Dragon again. I really am close on Dragon. I'm in the mood on Dragon, and so I think we're going to just do Dragon. Much as Barbarian is very close as well. I think if I finish Dragon, I'm going to be, like, pretty happy. So we'll work on the big crystals here. Then we're going to work on getting these little scales all highlighted, these smaller normal scales, the non-crystalline ones. Then I'm going to figure out what color his throat is, and we'll probably paint the base black. I'll have to pop him. I've got a big block to stick him on so that I can start working on him without handling his base. And maybe we'll get to doing like the stonework veining on the base, because I want to make it like kind of like it's black marble, carved black marble. So yeah, I'm gonna try. I like to start a little earlier these days. It gives me a little bit more of my afternoon afterwards, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. But yeah, so we should be able to get lots of progress on this guy tomorrow, and that's exciting to me. That's exciting, and the thought that we will maybe get Dragon done at some point is very exciting. Yes, thank you all. Thank you, Quindy, for modding, and I'll see you. Hopefully the storm doesn't get you, Quindy, tonight, and I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Yep. Have a great one, everybody, and hopefully I'll see a bunch of you tomorrow. All right. Bye-bye.